Okay, so let's get started. Here I have some lovely citrus. I've got limes, lemons, and oranges, which are some of the more popular citrus fruits. So the first thing you need to do is remove those pesky stickers and give the citrus a nice rinsey poo in the sink, and you're good to go. Fortunately, I've already done that with these right here, so we can dive right in. The first tip is to warm up your citrus before using it. This is especially important if it's been in the refrigerator. You can do this a handful of ways. You can simply leave it out on the counter for a while before you use it. You could use warm water when you rinse it off, or you could even microwave it. With a single lemon like this, maybe about 20 seconds. You're just looking to warm it up a bit, not cook it. And the reason you want to warm up your citrus is that it damages the cell walls, which makes it easier to get the juices and oils out. If you're using an industrial juicer, this might not matter, but since most home chefs are just using their muscles, this tip helps. The next thing you do is roll the citrus. No, not like that. Push down on it, apply some downward pressure, and roll it like this. This also helps get more juice out, and it brings the oils to the surface of the citrus. This makes it especially important if you're using the zest. You can just smell it. Speaking of which, the first thing we're going to teach you about is zesting. If you're going to zest, it is wise to do it before you cut the citrus. It's much easier that way. This here is called a zester, or grater. This specific brand is called Microplane, and it's probably the most popular brand. It's just like a cheese grater, but with smaller holes. Not only is it a great tool for zesting, but it's also good for ginger, garlic, nutmeg, and Parmesan, among other things. You may wonder, when would I use citrus zest? Well, zest is a great way of adding the flavor of citrus without the acidity that the juice has. So there are times when you'd want to add zest, times when you'd want to add juice, and times when you want to add both.
Here are some examples of when to use citrus zest. As you may be able to tell, it can be used in all kinds of food. Grate it on top of your rice to get an extra level of flavor. Add to a sauce just before it's done to brighten it up a little. Or put it on top of your protein before you cook it, especially fish. It goes great to balance out rich desserts like cheesecake, or a rich creamy pasta dish. And of course, veggies also love them some citrus zest.
Alright, now let's talk about how to zest. It's actually really simple. All you do is hold the microplane in one hand and the citrus in the other. Then apply a little pressure and slide the citrus back and forth along the zester. If you want, you can plant the zester vertically so it's a little more stable. Or if you want to see the zest, you can hold the zester facing up. Regardless of which way you hold it, you'll want to rotate the citrus as you zest to get all of the zest off. You'll start to see that where you've zested it will get a little lighter. You don't want it to be all the way white because then you will be zesting the pith, which can be bitter. You can see there that I have a good amount of zest here and on the cutting board, so I'll call it good for now. If you have some zest inside of the zester, just give it a couple of pops or taps to get it out. And if you still have some stuck, you can use your finger, but be careful because if you go against the blade, you can cut yourself, especially on the outside of the zester. That's it for the zest. So let's just move it to the side. By the way, zest can clump together when you do it like this, so if you want a better distribution, zest directly onto where you want it. Now let's talk about peeling. For this, I think a vegetable peeler is the easiest, fastest, and safest, but you could also go with the paring knife. One important thing is to make sure to apply enough pressure when peeling. If you don't, you'll end up pulling out too early and only have a tiny peel like this. So make sure to push down hard enough so you get a nice long piece, but not so hard that you're pressing into the fruit itself. And make sure to watch this back finger, because if you're not careful, you can cut it. Tuck it underneath, kind of like that. Much better. Alrighty then. Now we're going to make this peel look fancy. Usually when we're peeling citrus, it's for garnish, so the prettier, the better. First, we'll trim off the sides of the peel to make it look a little cleaner. I got a little thinner there at the end than I intended, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. Then comes for the fun part, turning this into a spiral. You can do this around a bar spoon, around a Sharpie, around a lighter, around your finger, really anything that is cylindrical. A straw is what we're going to use today. So what you're going to do is wrap it around the straw, coil it tightly, hold it there for a little bit, and then voila, you have a nice curlicue spiral garnish. One other type of peel you might like to do starts with a smaller piece of the peel. Admittedly, it's not as pretty, but it's going to be useful. Hold it in your hand like this along the long sides. As we've mentioned before, these peels have some delicious citrusy oils in them. What we're going to do is squeeze the peel to spray those oils out. This is called expressing the peel. This technique is often used for making craft cocktails or mocktails. So take the cup and express the peel into the cup. For the best effect, do this on top of the drink right before you serve it. Then, rub the peel along the outside of the glass and the inside of the glass if there's room. This will get those citrus oils all over and around the cup. That way, as you drink, you will smell and taste a subtle citrus flavor. Delicious. Okay, I have one last trick for the peel up my sleeve. It's called flamed citrus. It's another popular technique for craft cocktails. I'm going to use a lighter, but you could use a match if you're worried about the butane or whatever, but I don't care that much. First, heat the peel over the flame for a few seconds, moving it back and forth. As you can see here, the peel will actually brown and blacken. A little bit of color is probably fine, but too much and it will taste burned. In this case, it's maybe a little too much, but it's fine. Then, and here's the fun part, hold the peel over or just to the side of the flame and express it into the flame. This will not only cause a cool effect to impress your friends and family, but it can actually give some caramelization notes to the oils being sprayed into the drink. Finally, you can toss that flamed orange right into the drink. To make it prettier, you can fold it like a hot dog bun or even twist it like we did before. Now let's talk about what really gets me loose. You know that's the juice. In case you didn't know, this doohickey here is a citrus squeezer. There are holes in the bottom and its arms act as levers. This will help you get more juice than you could with just your hand. Plus, it's easier. Oh, and the holes in the bottom are small enough so that the seeds don't go through them. The first step of juicing is to cut the citrus. In this case, we'll use a lemon. I used to simply cut it in half across its equator and juice it like this. Some people also juice it like this. But later on, I learned a better way to juice it. Cut off the ends of the lemon. You want to make sure that you can see mostly yellow. If it's all white, cut some more off. I cut off more than I needed to here. It was probably fine the first time. Juicing it this way will allow the juice to come out of the bottom, so hopefully you'll get a little more bang for your squeeze. One other tip is to cover it with your hand because it will squirt out of the sides. Then, tilt it upside down to get any remaining juice out of there. For completeness, I'll squeeze the other half. And finally, there may be some seeds in there, so make sure to trash those. Okie dokie. Let's talk about the best way to juice citrus if you don't have one of those fancy tools. Rotate the citrus so the north-south is facing this way. Then you're going to cut it just off-center. After that, rotate and continue to cut off-center until you're left with 4 pieces and a center core. And the reason you do this method is that it's much easier to squeeze these pieces than it is to squeeze an entire citrus half. So you'll likely get more juice out, and it's especially good if you have weak hands. The harder the citrus, the more benefit this method will have. Small limes can be kind of hard and especially tough to juice, so this method is great for them. As you juice, make sure you hold your hand underneath to catch any seeds. For the center segment, if it's citrus without seeds, you can just twist it. But since this is a lemon, I'll just squeeze it. To be honest, I think that this method gets out more juice than using the squeezer. The downside is that now my hands are covered in juice and it takes a little longer. So I'm going to clean this up and then we'll talk wedges. I don't know if you've taken a look at my selection of tools over here, but you may have noticed this one. This is a bottle opener. And why do I have that? For the beer, of course. Now, this beer isn't the type of beer I would typically put citrus in, but it's the one that I had. First, we taste. Tastes good, but you know what would make it taste even better? A little bit of citrus. So for that is a lime. How I used to cut lime wedges is from the north to south, like this. But let me show you something. Inside, you'll see this white line down the middle, a membrane or something like that. When you cut wedges that include that membrane, it can be tougher to squeeze. If, instead, you cut along the equator like this, you'll see all of the individual sections of the lime versus this. Now when you cut your wedges, there's not that tight membrane there. See the new method versus the old one? The new one will actually come apart into pieces. The old one does not. So I think this one is much better for putting into beer. As I put it in, I squeeze it against the neck of the bottle and then give it the good old thumb trick. Stick your thumb in the bottle and turn it upside down. This will float the lime up into the beer. Make sure to twist your thumb as you slowly remove it or you'll spray beer all over yourself. Now you have a beer with lime in it. Tastes good. But back to the wedges. The wedge with the line in it is actually better for putting on the side of a glass, so let me show you how to do that. Grab the lime that was cut north to south and using your knife, cut into the middle of it. You don't want to cut all the way through, however, you're just trying to make a slit. You don't want to come out the backside. Then, when you cut your wedge, it will have the perfect slit so it will fit right onto the side of your glass. 2 more tips for cutting wedges. Consider cutting wedges in half. It will make it easier for people to choose exactly how much citrus they want. And if you don't have that much citrus around, it can help stretch it a little. Lastly, a pro drinking tip for when using wedges is to use them as a drink counter. Leave the wedges in your glass to know how many you've had. So there's 1 drink, 2 drink, and 5 drinks. So if this is what your cup looks like at the end of the night, you know you've had a good night and you shouldn't be driving anywhere. Another nice decoration is a wheel or a slice. Start with some citrus that has been cut along the equator and cut a thin slice. Then cut a slit for it to go onto a glass. As you can see, I cut this wheel a little too thin for that, but you can also just float it on top of the drink. That's pretty as well. The problem with this lime is that it's so small and it's difficult to get a good grip on. You can always put it flat and cut horizontally if needed. But here's a little thicker wheel so you can see how nice it looks, and voila! By the way, your knife should be sharp, since we just taught you how to do that, but if it's not, you may find it easier to cut citrus with a serrated knife. In case you don't know, serrated is just a fancy word for jagged. Lastly, you can also use these wheels as a garnish for food. Just separate the cut sides of the wheel like that. Ooh, fancy. In review, we got juice, we got peels, we got flamed peels, we got exciting sparks, we got oils all up on our cups, we got a cute little spiral, we got a wheel, we got a wedge for garnish, and a wedge for beer. That is citrus. Cheers.